All right, hey, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics, and this is your tropical update for September 14th, 2019. We have several systems we're monitoring today. Only one organized storm in the Atlantic, which is Tropical Storm Humberto, located near the northwest Bahamas, that is slowly forecast to turn up and away from the eastern United States over the next few days. We have an area of interest due to an upper level low pressure in the Gulf of Mexico as it retreats back towards Texas that might have a chance of developing. And then we have several waves down here in the main development region of the Atlantic that we'll have to watch, but it appears only this one right here is going to be the main player, but we have one or two other ones. So let's go ahead and talk about this real quick. Let's go ahead and look at the 5-day outlook from the National Hurricane Center. Again, we do have Tropical Storm Humberto, the only organized storm here this morning. It is currently near stationary. We can zoom in on it a little bit here today, and we see here that it does have a much more apparent circulation center, which is very close to Abaco Island in the Bahamas. These are, remember, the two islands that were hit so hard by Hurricane Dorian last week or the week before. But the system is still undergoing some wind shear. You can see the southwest wind shear is still acting on the storm, kind of pushing these little cirrus clouds north of the system. And then we have in the low levels, we have this onshore flow over Florida, producing a lot of showers and breezy conditions across the Sunshine State here today. But we can see Humberto is not really moving very much. This is going to be a little bit curious to watch. Currently, the forecast still shows that Humberto will stay offshore of the eastern United States. It will not be any direct impacts to Florida. The tropical storm warnings were canceled last night from Jupiter Inlet to Volusia County, and none have been reissued. And given how far offshore this would be, there's virtually no significant impacts to the eastern coastline besides rip currents and surf along the beaches. However, I'm just a little concerned looking at this thing, considering the fact that it's still stationary. It's just not really moving very much. I mean, they have it moving at northwest of 7 miles an hour now, which I don't know if that's actually accurate because it doesn't seem to be moving, but it might be moving now. But regardless of, it's not moving very fast, and if this thing does continue to kind of drag its feet and stall, I'm a little concerned going into like this time frame here that we might see this thing try to more of a stall instead of moving, catching its trough and moving out. Essentially, looking at the modeling, what we see here is so Humberto is going to be right here on the model. You're going to see it try to move. We have a high pressure cell to its north and high pressure offshore here that's trying to create this little gap that it's going to try to shoot over the next few days. It's going to try to get up in here with this big upper level weakness. So you're going to see about two storms want to merge right here. So you see the second low pressure comes down going into early next week, and we have no low here. These things are going to kind of form this one big upper level storm. We have a big high across the central Atlantic, and then another high pressure trying to slide to its north. So as this high backs away, if this high is fast getting here and a bit stronger, it could try to bridge the two highs and kind of create a blocking high, which would want to potentially steer the storm down and around. But this is just something I'm watching personally. It's not in the official forecast. The official forecast does show enough of a weakness, which does show well in this model. We can see a pretty clear weakness right here that Humberto would be able to follow. I think it might hold on just because this storm up here is so big. It's going to likely extend this weakness further south and keep these ridges apart and let Humberto escape out to sea. So it's something to watch, but you can see here as those high pressures move further away, Humberto is probably going to have enough room to its south to get out of town and move out and away. So right now it does look like that's the thing. But if this does change, or if it really continues to drag its feet and move slow, it could stall and just kind of sit offshore here, which wouldn't be a problem. Maybe too far offshore, but sometimes when they stall, they can do weird things. So just something to keep an eye on there. But overall, Humberto should get offshore next week and move out into the Atlantic and not bother anybody. Elsewhere, we do have this area of interest here in the Gulf of Mexico to talk about. This is an upper level low that's slowly churning its way back towards Texas. Thunderstorm activity has been pretty robust on the east side of it. And if this continues, it may eventually work its way down to a surface low, which would then potentially make this a tropical depression or a tropical storm as it moved towards Texas. It would be a couple days from now. It's going to take it 2 or 3 days to wander across the Gulf of Mexico. It's not moving very fast. So interest on the Texas coastline, especially South Texas, should keep an eye on this. Although I wouldn't expect much serious development. It's probably just going to be a rainmaker for you guys, but could be named as it's approaching the coast late later next week. Finally, we do have a couple different waves out in the open Atlantic down here. We go back to the 5-day outlook. We see that this big train wreck right here is really only one wave. They have another wave marked right here, but it's no longer being discussed and it has a 0% chance of development. And this wave in the yellow doesn't really either. So it's this more broad wave here that is expected to move generally to the northwest over the next several days. We can see it on the zoomed out satellite. It's this tropical wave right here. It's an open wave right now, but it's generally moving off in this direction, and it's pretty much ate up the rest of them. This one right here is the other one they were talking about. It has really no chance of developing, and the other ones have kind of fell apart. So this thing should basically steer around an upper level high pressure, and it should generally move off to the northwest over the next few days. We look at the models, the ECMWF, as far as cyclone genesis here, shows about a 40-50% chance of genesis by the time it's getting north of the Windward Islands and Puerto Rico, where we expect it's probably going to go north of the Caribbean completely. We see it both on the probabilities for the ensemble prediction, and we also see in the ECMWF deterministic runs. We can see a small storm developing right here. This is going into Thursday, where we have the storm moving off to the north and potentially moving north of the islands. And if it's that far north, it would likely try to follow Humberto's path. As Humberto moves out, this storm would probably see the same weakness and try to move towards it. This is what the European model believes. As this high pressure kind of sits over here, the weakness left behind from Humberto would probably want to draw this storm up with it. But that's still a long way to go. We're talking, of almost a full 7 days from now. So we'll have to watch that carefully for the interaction. That also depends on how fast Humberto wants to actually get out of town. If it's a day or two slower, it could actually help to coax this storm further north by keeping this ridge a little weaker. There's a couple different things at play here, but essentially, this storm, although it's probably going to develop over the next few days, doesn't look like an imminent threat to the eastern United States, but will have to be monitored closely if the high pressures and stuff do shift around to keep this blocked. Then it would be on a more westward track towards the United States. So we'll have to see if this thing does that or if it simply turns north and gets out of town with its friend here, which hopefully it does. So that's what I got for you guys this morning on the tropical update. Not much else going on. Africa's still healthy. We still got a lot more coming, and looks like our late September forecast will be a very busy season. We do have some upper level waves passing through the region in that time frame, so we are going to see more activity. This is not going to be the last activity we'll see this year. We can look at the Central Pacific Hurricane Center. They have two areas of interest south of Hawaii. The Eastern Pacific has a couple areas of interest, and also the Joint Typhoon Warning Center is monitoring 3 separate storms. So it is popping all around the globe, not just the Atlantic, which is we do see this time of year. So we'll have to keep a close eye on that, but please stay vigilant. Please keep monitoring your forecasts, and we'll just get through the rest of the season like we always do. So that's what I got for you guys this morning. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.